Okay, I want to talk about why Leo energy is so significant right now. And this video is not like about Leos, and it's not even really about astrology, although the astrology symbolism and metaphor helps me notice what's going on with this and helps me understand why it's coming through. This has been going on for a while, where I've been noticing Leo energy is basically, it's popping off. Like on my other channel where I do astrology stuff, right? A lot of like astrology focused stuff. The Leo videos just explode, and they all like really resonate with people. And then at the same time, I've been getting a lot of messages and doing readings for people all about they are struggling with Leo energy, right? Struggling with Leo energy, either struggling to embody it or struggling like with it coming at them and they don't like it and don't know how to deal with it. And it's just this whole Leo thing. So what is this really about, and what is the bigger picture here, right? What is like the way bigger picture here? There's of course multiple levels of this. One of the things going on is that Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for like the next 20 years. At the time I'm filming this video, Pluto just retrograded back into Capricorn for, some months right before it is in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So, but that's really part of it, right? And why am I talking about Aquarius? What does it have to do with Leo? For those of you who don't know, Aquarius and Leo are opposite signs in the zodiac, and the astrological axes are so incredibly important in my mind. Like I can never think about a sign, I can never think about a zodiac sign without also thinking about its opposite, because really it's about the axis, right? We can't really, in my mind, I can't separate them, right? I can't separate them. Every zodiac sign is entirely tethered and involved with its opposite. And really, when you harmonize an axis, when you put, for the purposes of this conversation, Aquarius and Leo back together, you get one unified whole. So really everything that is opposite in the zodiac is really two halves of one whole. And it's about putting them back together. Like that's part of what I see us doing as we live, right? And Aquarius, to really drastically oversimplify, Aquarius represents the mind and collective consciousness, right? The higher mind and collective consciousness. So Aquarius is a collective energy. On the other hand, you have Leo, which is the sun, your personal solar energy, yourself, your character. So Leo, again, to oversimplify, Leo is the self and Aquarius is the collective. And that is this axis that we are working on through the next 20 years. But of course, it's not just about Pluto. That just happens to be coming up right now. On a much broader perspective, this is about shifting into the age of Aquarius. And I know some of you probably resonate with that language, some of you don't. It doesn't really matter. I just see it as a really useful way of looking at the current shift in consciousness. The language of the age of Aquarius works in a lot of ways. I think it's very helpful. And of course, we're shifting out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. What does that mean? So the last 2,000 years or so-ish, right, have been in the age of Pisces, according to this one particular view. There's other ways of looking at it, but we're going to go with this one for now. And it's really like, it really resonates with me, right? I'm pretty familiar with the last 2,000 years of like European history, basically. And it's really funny to me. I can see the Pisces overtone for the last 2,000 years. And over the past 100 years, and even farther back than that, we've been noticing the shift into the age of Aquarius. And like I can see it so well in history. And I would love to do a whole video actually of like pointing out some of the historical things that make me go, oh yeah, we've definitely been in the age of Pisces, but that's a whole different video. But let me just say that the last 2,000 years, there's been this dominating Pisces energy, which Pisces energy is very complex. It can be, and of course there's levels of it, right? The lower vibe of Pisces is essentially darkness and death and depression and oppression and just the bottom, the unconscious, the bottom of consciousness. But Pisces goes all the way to the top, where it is ultimate, where it is like the blinding light and spiritual transcendence. So it contains all of that. But of course, we can't talk about Pisces without talking about the opposite and its own opposite, which is Virgo. And if you also look at the last 2,000 years of human consciousness, you see how Virgo has actually been, I almost want to call it the back foot. That's how this feels to me. It's like the back foot. Pisces has been the front foot, the energy that has been quite like blanketing human consciousness for 2,000 years, kind of oppressing human consciousness for 2,000 years, honestly. And Virgo has been the back foot. Virgo is paying attention to details. It is minded, but like it's minded earth energy, right? So it is thinking about details and micromanaging things and figuring out how things work and using the mind to understand how things work. It is also reclusiveness, hiddenness. And of course, these are some of the, lower and middling frequencies of Virgo. It's also like the Hermit card, right? Think about the Hermit energy. This is where we get into the higher frequencies of Virgo. Super ultra spiritual. Virgo is being the light keeper, right? It is keeping the light within. And I always see Virgo as the lantern, right? Think of the Hermit's lantern, literally shrouding your light with earth, keeping your light within you, carrying it even inside of your body, right? Carrying the light inside of your body. So for the last 2,000 years, right? Especially if you identify as like a light worker, starseed, a light keeper, anything, right? The last 2,000 years, there's been a lot of this controlling Virgo energy in the background. I think since the Pisces energy has been blanketing us down and kind of, it's been rough, right? And of course, on Earth, other ages of Pisces don't necessarily have to have been, or they don't have to be so dark, but it just so happens that the last 2,000 years have been, I think we've had a lot of the lower vibe, the lower Pisces vibe, right? The lower vibes of Pisces, which is for other reasons that are beyond the scope of this particular conversation. But so we've been pretty heavily oppressed by the heaviness, the thickness of low vibrations of Pisces, and that has put us all into the Virgo back foot, relying on our minds, learning to analyze, right? Learning to live in a dark, chaotic world and carrying the light within us, learning to hide, learning to shroud ourselves, essentially learning to collapse in on yourself, hold yourself within yourself and survive, right? Even being in survival mode. And of course, relying on the mind to keep us alive in a time of darkness. So that's kind of how I see what's been going on. Now shifting into the age of Aquarius, we're like bleeding out that Pisces, like the lower vibes of Pisces. And also, of course, what's happening is we're shifting out of the lower vibrations of Virgo. That's why we're always talking about releasing the mind, right? Knowing that all of this analysis, and that's my cat making a cat quake, but she's moving off. All of this that's really funny actually, because we're shifting into Leo. Leos are cats, right? Shifting out of all of this mental analysis and all of this hiddenness and all of this micromanaging and all of this low vibe Virgo stuff, and even this idea that we need to carry the light within, shifting out into the age of Aquarius also means what's the new back foot, right? If the age of Aquarius means that Aquarius is going to be the new front foot, then the new back foot is Leo. Okay, so the new back foot is Leo. So we used to navigate a dark Piscean landscape by relying on our Virgo ability to hide, to shroud, and to analyze. Now we're moving into an Aquarian landscape, which, here's the thing, here's my one big beef with the language of the age of Aquarius is that it tends to like assume that everything about Aquarius is fantastic. Well, of course, so many things, and the highest vibrations of Aquarius are like unity consciousness, right? And harmonious collectives, and so much of Aquarius is fantastic, right? But of course, every energy has low vibrations. So we're gonna, of course, be encountering low vibe Aquarius energy, which is really freaky shit, right? Like feeling like the collective is controlling you, feeling like someone is controlling your mind, feeling like mental energy or even like computing energy, I would almost call it, is taking over. So, the whole thing, just really quick sidebar, I do not want to fixate on this in this video, but artificial intelligence, right? AI and even VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality, all of that is all coming down the pipe. That is all Aquarian stuff. And of course, the collective is going to be dealing with their Aquarian fears, right? So all the low vibe Aquarian energy is being afraid of the collective controlling your mind, right? And controlling you, feeling like you are being controlled by the collective. That is the fears that we have, or, some of us have about Aquarius, the low vibrations of Aquarius energy. So we're going to be facing that and dealing with that. That is also part of the age of Aquarius. So how do we deal? how do we navigate the new Aquarian landscape? We do it with Leo, right? We do it with Leo. So in our own personal space, right? Our own personal space, Leo energy, this is why Leo energy is becoming so incredibly important. So incredibly important, and it's a shift. We are all, and this has nothing to do with your own personal birth chart, your own zodiac signs or anything. I mean, if you have these placements, you're going to be like, this might be emphasized for you in some way. It might be highlighted in your life in some way, but it's kind of besides the point. Every single being on earth is doing this, shifting out of the Virgo way of navigating the world into the Leo way of navigating the world. And here's the thing. Leo doesn't really navigate shit. We're going to need to rewrite our language, right? Because Virgo, yes, Virgo studies and analyzes and does linear steps. This is why we are constantly like, all of us, we all do this. We say, show me how to do this. How do I do this? What are the steps in order to do this? What is the linear process in order to do this? That's Virgo thinking, right? But Leo thinking, nothing to do with that, right? Leo is simply being the sun, right? And you could maybe think about Leos that you know, but I would say with Leo energy, let's skip straight to the source. I mean, you could think source consciousness, but of course that gets a little complicated because source consciousness is, of course, way more than just Leo. But think about our actual physical sun that we see every day. Right now, the light of the sun is coming in the window, right? Think of the sun itself. That is our best example, our best archetype, our best role model for Leo. The sun just sits there, being fantastic, being fabulous, being the center of its own universe, gathering, and the sun has ignited by gathering resources to itself, right? How do stars ignite in space? I mean, if I'm trying to remember my basic high school science, right? All of the space particles all coalesce until it becomes dense and big enough to ignite, right? I think if Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, had gotten bigger, had gained more mass, had gathered more space dust to itself, Jupiter could have ignited and became a star, right? So in order to ignite, you need to gather things to you, and you increase your mass, you grow in size, you increase your gravity, and then you ignite and become a star. And huge recurring theme I am seeing constantly everywhere for like the last year is people who would identify as being spiritual struggle with this. They struggle to ignite. They struggle sometimes with Leo energy specifically because they feel selfish, right? Because they feel selfish. They think it's selfish. And sometimes they're right? Low vibe Leo energy is selfish. But of course, every energy has its sliding scale, and the highest vibrations of Leo energy is the sun. Just look at the sun. I mean, you could even pick other stars, right? Because our sun, isn't the most evolved star even in our galaxy, right? I would say our star is actually kind of, I don't know, kind of like a 30-year-old. I think our sun is kind of like the equivalent of a 30-year-old. And so a 30-year-old, you can talk to a 30-year-old, and I'm only 34, so like me even. Yes, it's like, okay, this person has some level of maturity, some level of knowledge, some level of wisdom, but it's like, of course, you could find an example of someone who is just way more matured than that, way more advanced than that. So you could even pick another star like Arcturus, right? The Arcturian star. Maybe that will give you an even deeper example of what mature, high frequency Leo energy could be like. Just like pick your favorite sun, right? Pick your favorite sun. How does this show Leo energy to you? Because in its highest frequencies, Leo energy is not selfishness. Leo energy is actually generosity. Okay, generosity. And you might think, how is the sun being generous? yes, it gathers everything to it. Yes, all of these planets are literally caught in its orbit, right? The sun is entirely self-centered. It is the center of its own solar system. The planets are orbiting the solar system. The planets are orbiting the sun. That is self-centered, but that is not bad. It is generous because the light of the sun allows us to exist, right? The light of the sun allows us to exist very literally and specifically. If it were not for the sun and the light of the sun, that the sun is simply giving off, so if it were not for the sun's selfishness, or the sun's, I think a way better way to say it is the sun's self-centeredness, or simply the sun's selfness, right? We would not exist in this form. Humanity would not exist. Earth would not have life on it. My dog would not exist. None of the trees, nothing that we know it would exist. Maybe life could somehow exist in different forms in the solar system, but it wouldn't be a solar system. It would just be a lump of rock in space. In fact, I'm pretty sure without the sun, the planets would not have even formed, because usually they form in orbit. Don't quote me on all of the astronomy. I forget a lot of it and I can't remember it clearly when I'm talking, but you get the point, right? This is just kind of examples to show you that without the selfness, without the individuation and the self-focus of the sun, all of this stuff would not exist. And then the sun bathes the entire solar system with its light, and it does not do this from self-sacrifice, right? The sun is not going into itself and pulling out parts of itself and flinging its energy out. It's not sacrificing in that way. The sun does not sacrifice, right? And this is important actually, because think the Virgo-Pisces axis, which we were coming off of, that is an axis of self-sacrifice. Pisces energy specifically fucking self-sacrifices, right? That Pisces is the self-sacrifice. And Virgo is almost the reaction to self-sacrifice. That's why Virgo is so self-contained and why it is so controlled and analytical, because it is trying to stop itself from sacrificing. Virgo does not want to self-sacrifice, but Virgo also walks a path of service, so it gets a little complicated. So anyway, Virgo Pisces, an axis of self-sacrifice and even slavery, and definitely a path of service. That's fading out. Of course, that doesn't go away because no energy ever really goes away, right? But we're shifting into now Aquarius Leo, where we are in this new Aquarian landscape, and we are going to have to learn to embody Leo energy in a new way so that we can exist healthily, happily, and productively in the Aquarian landscape by being a sun, right? By being like the sun, And here's the thing, I see Aquarius energy is like when I see a symbol for Aquarius in my mind, I see a constellation of stars, right? I see a constellation of stars. I see a network of stars. What are stars? Stars are suns, right? If you zoom in on a star, you would see that there's stuff orbiting it, then you would call it a sun, right? So you cannot have a constellation of stars, Aquarius, without individual suns, Leo. You cannot have a collective, a network of people without individuals. And this is just like you cannot, like the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. A web or a network or a collective is only as strong and healthy as its individuals. So, and this brings me to, but of course you can't have the Leo energy or the individual energy like overthrowing and destabilizing the constellation, or overthrowing and destabilizing the collective and the network, right? So this comes to the constant challenge, and this challenge, guys, this is not going to go away anytime soon. So if you struggle with this, balancing self and collective, the balance of self and collective, I know, like this just keeps coming back around, and we're going to be talking about this for fucking ever, right? This is a timeless message, right? This is for whenever you see this, but this is just going to be ongoing. The balancing act between self and collective, how to get those actually in balance, because there's going to be back and forth and wobble about this because we're trying to fucking figure it out, right? We're trying to figure this out, and we're not going to solve this like instantly, right? Like, I'm talking like each and every one of us in our individual human lives and as a planet and as a universe, right? We're trying to figure out how to balance the self and the collective, how to have a strong, healthy, functional, happy, satisfied, sovereign individual existing within a happy, healthy, productive, collective network, and have both of these things, self and collective, individual and collective, Leo and Aquarius, in perfect harmony. So the point of this video is to not explain how to do that, because I don't know how to do that. I struggle with this a lot. I happen to be in a spot where Leo energy is much more comfortable to me. Aquarius energy is way more of a challenge to me. But for some people, some of you watching this, you're in the opposite boat, where Aquarius energy is way more natural to you and comfortable to you, and Leo energy is more of a challenge. So it's good that some of us are on one end and some of us are on the other end, because that means we're coming at it from both sides. It's like we're working the problem from both ends, or like digging the tunnel from both ends, and then we'll eventually meet in the middle, and then it'll start to click, and we'll start to understand how to do this. It's a big project, right? It's a big project. So some of us will be needing to learn about the Aquarian end of things, where we'll be learning how to understand the collective, how to belong with a collective, how to interact inside of a collective in a way that works for me and everybody else, right? Some of us are learning that. But I think this particular video, for whoever is going to be watching this video, I feel like this video is made for you guys, right? I was called for this video for specifically you guys. Those of you who are already pretty comfortable with the Aquarian space, but you're moving into the Leo space, right? Because this video is more about emphasizing the growth of your Leo energy, And whichever side you're on is literally a product of your soul's journey and your ancestry, like your ancestry in this life. For example, like I don't have any Leo placements. I do have a Leo midheaven, which is nice. But it's ancestral for me, right? If I were to go back in the recent 2 generations in my family, there was a bunch of Leo energy that my parents and grandparents worked through, and that's been passed on to me. So essentially, in my particular genetic heritage, the Leo energy has already been cultivated and strengthened and stabilized, and now I just kind of got to inherit that. So lucky me, right? But of course, I inherited other problems and other challenges. It just depends on your own personal journey, right, and your family's journey about where you are on this. So the point is, wherever you're at, right, you know where you're at. Some of you working on understanding the collective, understanding the Aquarian end of things. Some of you working on becoming like the sun, right? Becoming like the sun, and learning to go, oh, this is not selfishness. This is simply self-focus. This is simply self-cultivation. This is simply me shining my light out into the world, and knowing that it's safe to take off that Virgo shroud, because Virgo, the light of Leo is actually inside Virgo. Because I know in this perspective, we're going what we would call backwards through the zodiac, right? From Pisces, Virgo, and then backwards to Aquarius, Leo. But in our normal calendar progression, right, we're going from Leo to Virgo. So the light of Leo exists inside of Virgo. But in this bigger picture, we're taking the shroud off, right? We're taking the shroud, the Virgo shroud, off, and literally just allowing the light to shine out everywhere with no more shroud, right? No more shroud, no more hiding, and even no more analysis, no more steps, no more thinking, because think of the sun. Is the sun trying to figure anything out? Is the sun going linear steps? Is the sun worrying? No, the sun is simply being a golden ball of light in the sky, in space, floating through space. Doesn't give a shit, right? Because the sun is just I am the sun. Here is my light, right? And And the sun, like you can communicate with the sun, right? I'm sure you do this all the time without even knowing it. Some of you probably do know it. I guarantee that you're all doing this even if you don't know it. Because the sun is literally there to feed us light and to feed us source energy. And have you ever noticed that when you sit in the sun, you get downloads, right? And your crown is open and like everything, like interdimensional communication gets really easy because it's coming in literally in the sunlight, right? And that's one of the things on the very highest level that the sun is doing. It's not just giving us sunlight so that, our bodies can create vitamin D and the plants can photosynthesize. The sun is also like giving us source codes. It's giving us data from source. It's not just delivering visible sunlight, because you got to think the light of the sun. Yes, we get visible sunlight and we get the heat that we can feel on our skin, but think of all of the invisible radiation that comes from the sun. Yes, a lot of that is filtered out by the Earth's atmosphere, but not all of it is. And even the stuff that is filtered out, you guys, our connection, our consciousness actually goes out beyond the atmosphere of the Earth. So we're even tuned into that, getting the radiation from the sun that is outside of the Earth's atmosphere, right? We're even bringing that in. And then, of course, all of the radiation that we don't know how to measure with physical instruments, but that if you're spiritual, you are aware of, right? There's all kinds of data coming in from the sun. So same thing with you, right? Same thing with you. You're radiating your own radiance. And this isn't just about light, the way we think about it, right? It's not just about emanating light, although it is absolutely that, but it's also about all of the energy that you are emanating and radiating that you don't even know you're doing, that you can't see, but it's going out there into the world, right? All of your energy that you're radiating, that you are completely unaware of, that you might never be able to see, that you might never be able to measure, but it's going out into the world doing who knows what, really. But the thing is, you don't even really need to know. You don't need to know. You just need to feel it, right? And this is shifting from, again, the Virgo earth energy, but it's like analytical earth energy, right? To fire, okay? To igniting with fire, to being this heart of fire. So it's a big shift. It's a big shift. And I could kind of ramble on forever and ever and ever about this, but you don't need me to talk about this. You can just go stand in the sunlight, right? You can just go stand in the sunlight, which is, of course, depending on how many clouds you got where you're at and how long the days are for you right now, could be harder or easier, but you can definitely get sunlight wherever you're at in some way, shape, or form. And just remember, it's about the sun. For the rest of your life, I would actually say, for the rest of this particular human life, the sun is probably your most valuable role model. To become like the sun, to become like the sun. And of course, you have all kinds of other things going on. You have other energies that you're cultivating, this, and that, and yada, yada, yada. But it's to become like the sun. And then, of course, remember that the sun, yes, it's this great, big, magical, mystical, beautiful, cosmic ball of fire. But it is also one tiny little star in a universe of how many stars are in our universe? I have no idea. Last I checked, I think it's there's 800 billion galaxies, I think is the number that people throw around, 800 billion galaxies, and how many stars in each one of those galaxies. So that's the Aquarian side of this, right? So you go, yes, the sun from one perspective is the center of its entire universe, and it is this glorious shining ball of light that is emanating light and generosity and allowing life to exist. And in its turn, it is also a speck, like a tiny spark of light in an entire universe of stars. So to balance these things out, some of us going one way, some of us going the other way, all of us ultimately meeting in the middle to what we do this, right? We ultimately succeed at this in finding the harmonious balance between Leo and Aquarius, or between the individual and the collective. It's going to be an interesting ride as we figure this out. Don't worry about fluctuations, right? There's of course going to be fluctuations. the scales are balancing, right? There's fluctuations. It doesn't matter because that's the path that we walk to rediscover and reestablish the harmony that has always been ours.